Hey, AfterBuzzers. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Spotlight On. I have a very special guest here, Yanic Truesdale. Please stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
If you're out on the road. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this very special edition of Spotlight On. I'm your host, Sam Davidson, and I am interviewing a Gilmore Girls legend among many other accolades, Yanic Truesdale. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi.
Oh, God, I'm thrilled to have you and just to be talking to you. I kind of feel like, whoa, I'm traveling back in time and I'm just thrilled. I'm fangirling just a bit over here. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Well, we have a lot to talk about, but before we get into what's going on with you now, for any actors or entertainment people out there that really want to learn and know how someone like you got their start, I'd love to talk about, going back to Montreal, everything that happened before Gilmore Girls and how you finally got your big break.
Well, I had been working in Montreal before coming here for about 10 years. I went to acting school first, so that's how I started in the industry. I did a 3-year program at the National Theatre School of Canada, and when I came out when I graduated in '89, I started working immediately. There weren't any black people really in the industry back then, except for one that was very famous, but it was more like a host type of thing. So I got cast. Actually, I got cast in third year of my acting program while I was still in school.
Wow.
Into a series, because they were looking for someone of color, and they didn't have any. So that's how it all started when I graduated there.
Canada, I'm a big fan of Canadian television and Canadian actors, and it just seems like things are a bit different over there. I don't know why, I can't put my finger on it, but I love the material that they produce, as well as the actors that come from Canada.
What do you see? What have you seen from Canada?
Well, I'm a big fan of weird Canadian TV shows. I watch a lot of TV. There's this old show called, not that old, Being Erica, which I was a huge fan of. Yeah, and there's Orphan Black and Degrassi, of course, back in the day. And it almost seems like it starts off a lot of pretty epic careers. Yeah,
the thing with me is that I worked in French entirely before coming here. I'd never worked in English.
Wow.
Yeah, and when I moved to New York for a year, I took a year off after a sitcom I did in Montreal, and I went to study at the Lee Strasberg at the Actor Studio for a semester, and that's really where I learned to speak English, because my English was pretty basic before that.
That's fascinating. So when you went to theater school, it was all in French?
All in French, and all the series and all the theater that I'd done before was in French.
Wow.
So that was a big change for me. I mean, the fact that I studied in New York and was working in front of a class and got reaction to my comedy and my talent was kind of like a revelation to me. It kind of made me understand that talent doesn't have any frontier, that doesn't have any language barriers. So it just made me want to work in New York. I was going to move to New York, actually. I was not going to move to LA, and got convinced otherwise by a friend that was living here. And she made me understand that the business was in LA, and that even though I wanted to do theater and Broadway, she said they hire people that are famous now. So if you haven't done anything in the U.S., it's going to be hard for you to get a job on stage. So you should come to L.A., do television, and then you can go back to New York. And so that's how I ended up coming here.
And financially, too, people that are not from the States, or if they're from middle of America, they're like, we'll go to New York and my dreams will come true and I'll be rich and famous. But even if you're on Broadway, you're not getting paid that much unless you're top bill, and even so, unless you're a celebrity.
Exactly. But I wasn't really focused. I mean, when you're an actor in Canada, you really don't do it for the money.
Right.
The budgets are much lower, and the salaries are a completely different ballgame. So my drive to become an actor was never, I'm going to be rich and famous. It was like to make people laugh, to have validation, to touch people, to work on good material. So for me, the choice of being in New York was not like, I'm going to be making money. It was just like, I'm going to be working in an industry with more opportunities, really.
Yeah, it is two different industries. When New York and theater is a sector of the bigger entertainment, mogul industry that's out here. So you ended up moving out here, auditioning.
Well, not auditioning. for 10 months. The first, I mean, for me, it was very strange because I came here with 10 years of experience on television, on stage. I was celebrated. So I came here with some sort of confidence that I would at least get an agent.
Oh, God forbid you come to Los Angeles with confidence, right?
Right, I was the first one. So very naively came and thought that finding an agent would be a matter of a couple of weeks, right? I thought I'd get that out of the way immediately, but that didn't work that way. I couldn't find an agent, so therefore I couldn't audition. So I just didn't understand that it was so hard. And I went to lunch with a friend of a friend who was an assistant at CAA at the time, and he thought it was funny. And 9 months later, called me back out of the blue and said, "Did you end up finding an agent?" I said, "No, well, I met this woman. I was about to sign with this little tiny agency in the Valley." And he said, "Well, I saw a breakdown for a part, and I thought of you." So he said, "Do you want to go?" I said, "Yeah, my God, that'll be my first audition. Thank you." And it was Gilmore Girls.
Wow, so he kind of hip pocketed you. That's what they call it in the agency world
Yeah.
when an assistant's moving up.
Right.
And that was a good move on his part.
That was an awesome move. And so I then ended up going with him and be represented by him for a while. And I ended up doing Gilmore Girls, but it was a pilot. You know, you don't know if it's going to be a series. Then it got picked up for 13. Then you're like, oh, then you get picked up for the whole season. But it was a whole new process. Television in Canada is not like that. The show is either on the air or not. There's no picking up half of it. There's no pilot. You just do a show or you don't do it. So there was a lot of uncertainty, but excitement because it was obviously my first job and it was a great first job.
Yeah, what was it like shooting that pilot and that nobody knew how
Yeah.
big of a thing it was really going to be?
Well, for me, it was very exciting. Well, I'll tell you a story that I actually never told. I just remembered that story.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Exclusive.
Yes, exclusive. I read a book called The Artist's Way, which a lot of people know and do. Great book, phenomenal book. And in the book, she says to be very specific about what represents success to you and all of that stuff. And she also said somewhere in there to be specific about a timeline about stuff. And so it had been so hard that first year for me that I had decided that by my birthday, if I didn't have a clear sign by the industry that I should stay here, I would just go back home because I kept having offers home and I kept turning it down. And after a year, it started to be really a tough decision. So the audition came 10 days before my birthday.
Ooh,
Isn't that crazy?
that is crazy.
I landed the show before my birthday, so I stayed. But I would have sincerely gone back to Canada right after my birthday had I not booked that.
Wow, I hear a lot of stories like that too. You know, I was about to give up.
Yeah,
I was so close to going home.
But there's something so powerful about giving up. I don't know what it is, but just remember in your life, if you had a bad breakup and you didn't want that relationship to go away, the day that you want that relationship to go away, oh, suddenly your ex calls back. Or something happens that you're like, oh, that's so strange. He's reaching out now. There's something in that energy when you let go and you're suddenly willing to accept that you have no power over the situation, then suddenly things move your way. It's very weird.
I agree. I don't want to call it not caring, but
Now-
in a way, it's putting something out of your mind, out of the front part of your mind, and
Yeah.
putting so much energy into it.
Yeah.
When you give it a rest,
Yeah.
almost is when things start to happen.
But you can't fake it. You can't be like, oh, I don't care. No, you got to be willing to give it up. But truly,
Oh,
I think that's the thing.
that's so scary. It's like standing like on a ledge of a cliff. Like, all right,
I know.
I'm gonna go. Nope. Okay.
No, yeah.
I'm still gonna stay
It's
here.
a strange universal rule. I don't get it. It kind of makes no sense to me. Why wouldn't life reward you if you want something really bad? Right?
That's the story of my life right now,
Yeah.
honestly, and it rings true for so many people.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that someone that has found a lot of success, it's the same story.
It's the same thing for every human being. I think it's just a human rule or a human thing of life for some reason. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, you lucked out, but
Yeah.
also luck in this industry is hard work and being in the right place at the right time.
That's right.
You don't get lucky by not being talented. You
That's
put
right.
in the work, and then you hopefully will get rewarded.
And you never give up.
Exactly.
A lot of people that I've met through my career and in school and acting school were very talented. but just didn't have, and trust me, I don't judge, I really understand, but just didn't have the strength, the inner strength to push through the constant rejection that is going to be your life. That's what it is to be an artist. I'm not singers, any artist has that kind of ongoing rejection thing that you kind of have to embrace and deal and be somewhat fine with it.
Yeah, and those two words, pushed through, are something that I even really think about, and it's having to kind of go against the storm and literally just pushing.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, but it works, hopefully, if you keep on doing it.
It works, yeah. And depends also how you're wired. Me, if you tell me no 10 times, I'm going to want it even more. So the rejection was actually, for me, motivation. As I'm getting older, I have to admit that it gets tougher to deal with it, because you're at a stage in your life where any other profession, like if you've been repairing shoes your whole life, after 20 years, you pretty much have your clientele, people bring their shoes and you repair them and you have it pretty much set up. As an actor, it doesn't matter if you won an Oscar, it doesn't matter if you were on an amazing series that was, celebrated all over the world. If you haven't worked in a year or so, it kind of all goes away. And you kind of have to, again, prove that, oh, you should hire me. I'm fun, remember?
Remember me, Michel.
Or whatever part it is. Hey. But as you get older, there's a sense of like, wow, this is crazy. I'm still doing that. As opposed to when you're 20 or even 30, you're like, you don't care as much. And that sense of having security and an established life and a home and this and that, you don't really care when you're younger. But as you're getting older, you want those stuff.
Absolutely. But sometimes this career path that, a lot of people choose, like yourself, it's full of these ups and downs.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating thing to always hear about. I want to hear more about just what it was like when you guys on set, the actors of Gilmore Girls, realized that this was something huge, that this was going to be a very influential TV show for women, for watchers. When did that kind of click with the actors? Because you were there since the pilot episode.
I was there since the pilot. I don't know that I knew the extent of the success of the show, to be quite honest. I had never been on an American show. I knew it was a hit. Everywhere I went in the world, it was always, people got crazy and excited. So I thought, okay, that's what it is to do an American show, right? Because the international culture is pretty much the American culture. So that was interesting to me, but I had nothing to compare it to, because all of the other shows I had done was in Canada. And once you leave Canada, people don't usually recognize you. So all of that was kind of new, and I couldn't really judge where it fit. But it's mainly, I would say, for me, I don't know, maybe for the other actors would say something different, but for me, it's mainly after the show, with the years going by and having still 20-year-old girls coming up to me, and then Netflix brought it to another level, and then we had the ATX reunion last summer, and then thousands of people flew from all over the world, and they had to change venues and all that stuff. And then that really clicked with me afterwards, like, wow, this is something special, because by now it should have gone away. And instead it's growing. And that I had never seen that.
I think that's almost a new thing.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about the ATX, reunion, because when you guys had that last year in Texas, yes, it wasn't known that there was going to be a revival. I don't think it was decided yet. I think that is what people, the turnout for that and the excitement was so huge that Netflix goes, well, wait.
I don't know for fact, but I believe it was already in talk. They were already talking.
So you think that maybe the reunion was kind of just like, it was already talked, but like, let's feel it out here?
That I don't know. But what I know is I know Amy and Dan well enough to know that when I was at the reunion and they were asked about, oh, is there going to be a movie or this or that, I could sense that they weren't telling the full story. That was just me. But I was like, And then just at the party afterwards, I was like, wow, this was crazy. And I was talking to Dan. I mean, they were like, yeah, I was saying, you have to do something with this, right? You have to. And they're like, yeah, right. But I could just see that he wasn't telling everything. And not long after, there was a leak in the press and the Variety. So because we did the ATX, I think, in July, and by September or October, something came out. So I don't think that was enough time to pitch the show and have it where it was at with that small amount of time. So I think they were already talking.
I mean, the way I'm thinking about it, I feel as though it probably was in the works, and this is just a guess.
Yeah.
But when this reunion happened, that was just the last thing that it needed to go forward.
For sure.
And I'm sure when I watched the interviews from that reunion and read all of the articles that were written about it, the energy was so high.
So high.
And it was so exciting. And it seemed like all of you guys were so excited and almost surprised.
Very surprised. I really didn't expect any. I almost didn't go. I don't remember what I had in Montreal, but I didn't realize it was a big thing. But when I arrived at the airport, there were hundreds of people waiting for me with my pictures and stuff. And I was like, first of all, how did they know which flight I was on? How did they know I was coming? And then we had to check, at the hotel through the kitchen because people were camping in front. And I really didn't understand what was going on. And I tried to go out for a hamburger with Liza. And we had to go back. It was just like insanity outside.
Wow.
And I was like, what is this, like candid camera? Like, I didn't understand the level of madness during that festival. It was pretty crazy.
Well, because I'm trying to remember. So when Netflix brought Gilmore Girls, when they started streaming it, I'm trying to remember how long ago that was because I rewatched the entire series that I had watched growing up. I want to say it was a year and a half.
I want to say a year and a half or 2 years. I think that's it. Yeah.
And that is a very interesting and special thing, specific that Netflix does.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you have 20-year-olds now.
I know.
Coming up to you.
I mean, that room at the ATX, were you in the room? Were you there?
I wasn't. I wish I was.
Okay. Because in the room, I mean, thousands and thousands of people, and everybody was 20.
It's unbelievable.
They had to be Netflix fans that discovered the show through Netflix, obviously, because they were 5 when we did the show.
So like I said, I have a 16-year-old sister that is just like texting me off the hook right now. She is so excited that I'm with you. And I was like, do you know who I'm talking about? And she was like, are you kidding me? In all caps.
Oh my God.
Of course I do. Oh my God. Have him do the accent. Is that his real accent? Oh my gosh. He's so funny. And it's funny that like now all of the GIFs and stuff on the internet with Tumblr.
Yeah.
Because your character specifically is perfect for those one-liners.
Yes. Michel's got the best one-liners.
Do you have any favorites that you remember?
I have many. My God, I've had so many. But I remember one where there was an elderly woman. She was literally, the actress must have been in her late 80s. And she was at the end and she came to the front desk and said, excuse me, sir, do you know where I could find the best antiques? And Michel said, at your house, I guess.
I remember that.
I remember that line. I mean, that line was just like, when I read it, I was like, oh my God, it's so wrong. But it's so funny because it's so true, I guess, It's just, she was old, so.
Very dry humor, which is why.
Very dry, yeah. It's very much my humor. So that's why I felt so blessed with that part, because in many ways I connect with his sarcasm and dry humor, which is kind of my type of humor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now we know that there are going to be 4 90-minute installments on Netflix that we are going to be getting before the end of the year, which is what I've heard.
Is that what they say? Okay.
Yes. So they're saying, it's going to be around the holidays, which is going to be the best freaking gift ever. I'm going to go home for Christmas and watch them with my sisters. It's going to be so awesome.
Oh, nice.
I have a question. I don't know if you can tell me this, but just something I was a little bit confused about when I was reading about it is going to be each installment of 90 minutes is a different season.
Correct.
So is that the same season in 1 year, or is it like fall of this year, spring, or is it just, do you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
like one calendar
hold on, let
year?
me think. I think it's 1 calendar year.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the timeline. Yeah.
So we're seeing the characters obviously in different places than they were before, but possibly very similar.
Yeah.
I know I read some things about you that your character, we're going to get to learn a lot more about Michel.
Well, it's just Michel has been so mysterious, right? Because you have this character at work that is a very strong character, but I think we saw his mom once, but she came to the hotel. We saw him once in his apartment. And we've never seen anything about his love life. We haven't seen him at home. So people have been intrigued by, oh, what's his life like? What's his love life like? And all that stuff. And that we will find out, which I think people will feel excited about. Well, I hope so.
And what makes him so bitterly sarcastic?
Well, that is because he is French. Yes.
Because he's French.
Yes. Yeah.
In the car ride over here, I was trying to do my Michel.
Yeah.
But I was like,
Try. I want to hear.
Okay, I was like,
Okay.
Sam, don't do it. But now I'm gonna have to
Do it.
Michel. I'm Michel.
That's not bad.
I'm a snub.
Is he a snob? I guess he's a snob in some ways.
But he's a lovable snob.
He's a lovable snob. But for me as an actor, I have to find the inner door to the character, right? And for me, it's more his need to be right about things. He's set in his ways and has ways to, like a lot of French people, by the way. I've been told by a French person in Paris, whatever I was ordering, I wanted to have a Diet Coke, and the server told me that I shouldn't, that it just didn't go with my meal. Okay, so that's very French, and that's very, so I think he's very set in his way, and he needs to somehow educate people and make them better Americans. So that's my way of like dealing with his harshness at times.
Well, what I find really fascinating, which is something that you brought up earlier about, being a man of color in Canada and how that was getting you roles and stuff, I feel as though having you be French and a man of color as Michel would have been so much stronger in a way than if it was just like a white French guy.
I agree, but it's funny because I had that conversation with my agent last week because she sent me for a French part, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're perfect for it. You can do that in your sleep," which was true. I could, but I went in. First of all, I'm like, I'm playing one. I don't want to do that accent again. But then I went. The material was good, and the show was good, and I went in, and everyone obviously in the room was white, and I looked at it, and they were all French people, and I looked at everybody, and most of French parts that are written here are stereotyped of French people. And if in that stereotype, Americans don't see a black person, they see a white person. So I told my agent, I said, even though it seems like a good idea and that I'm going to have a shot at this because I'm good at doing the French accent, it's a false good idea because I'm going in for a stereotype and I don't fit in that stereotype.
But that's good in a way.
It's good in a way, but they're looking, often when they're looking for that part, they're looking for, trust me, in my business, a lot of it has to do with the way you look. And they just don't see that person. But it doesn't mean that one day I won't play another French part and you know what I mean? But I just think in general, they're looking for this pasty mustache, French men looking.
I think you need to create your own new stereotype.
I agree. Let's do that.
That would be really awesome.
Let's do that.
So you're gonna wrap shooting on the reboot, is what I'm calling it, the Gilmore Girls reboot. I think sometime in May.
Correct.
And it's very interesting that the way that it's, like I said, 4 90-minute installments, 4 small movies.
Yes.
In a way.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about it, and I think it gives an opportunity to bring a lot of people back and to give time to the characters.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's an interesting format. I wasn't sure when I heard about the format. I was like, an hour and a half? Like, I didn't understand why. But apparently, the British do that all the time. Apparently, Sherlock Holmes.
Yep.
It's an hour. Yeah, so I wasn't familiar with that. But after having read the scripts, it kind of makes sense, and exactly how you explained. You have more time to spend with each characters and develop and go probably a little deeper. So that's a good thing.
Besides the reunion last year, have you kept up with the other actors? Was it a great reunion on set when you came back to shoot?
It was. You mean when we started doing the revival?
Yes,
or you mean,
when you started doing the, because I know you guys saw each other last year
Yeah.
briefly, but it's like now that you came back, you know this is a real thing.
Right. I mean, my storylines, and often they're always involved a few other actors, including Lauren. So I don't get to see the other actors most of the time. So the reunion was great for that. But with Lauren, I remember my first day. First of all, we had been in touch, and we're friends, so we talk to each other all the time. But there was a moment on set. First of all, just to walk back on set and look at a set that didn't exist anymore, that they've rebuilt the same, a little bigger, sometimes little things like you look at everything and it feels a little different, but at the same time it feels the same. A little bit like going back to a house that you grew up, right? Your memory of it is often twisted and different from the way it was. So, but it's a happy place. It's a meaningful place. It's a show that has impacted a lot of the public and the fans, but impacted us. I mean, a lot of us had a big break there. That was our first big introduction to the industry and American culture and all that. So, including Lauren, she had worked before, but Gilmore Girls was her big break.
And
Melissa, and obviously, and
exactly, which I was, going to ask you about. I know you commented on it a bit with Melissa McCarthy coming back to the show. And it's so funny because I know that the creators of the show obviously wanted her back, but it's one of those things. You don't want to reach out to the hottest guy ever because he's probably going to reject you and you can't take it.
Right.
So it's like they know, they thought that she was so busy, and she is, but it's, I don't know her personally. She seems like such an amazing woman.
She is, yeah.
And she was so down. She's like, why didn't they call me?
Yeah, because no matter where you're at in life, your first break has a very special place in your heart. It's just normal. It's human nature. And Melissa, who has an amazing career and has this very unique place in Hollywood right now, and she completely deserves everything. She has a very unique talent. But started on Gilmore Girls.
Yeah.
And no matter where she is now, I am sure, feels the show is very close to her heart.
It's very nice because a lot of people they're like, oh my God, that was the lady on Gilmore Girls. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, people forget about that. Isn't that weird?
It is.
Yeah, I forgot who I told the other day, or they saw a picture of me and Melissa, and they said, oh, I didn't know you knew her. I was like, what do you mean? We worked together for 7 years. They're like, oh my God, it's true. She was on the show. They don't remember. I don't know why, because her character was very important and she was great.
It was very vital.
Yeah, I don't know why they forget. I don't know.
Are there any fun stories that you're going to remember for the rest of your life that you've had on the set of Gilmore Girls, either the old Gilmore Girls or the new Gilmore Girls, that's just going to, every time you get sad, you think about it and you go, that was a good time?
I mean, 7 years is a long time,
Absolutely.
right? And we've done many, many episodes. But there's just moments for me, like moments with Ed. I get very sentimental about Ed. He was very much my type of actor, very into the craft, very smart, very well-traveled, very educated, very curious about others, and very sophisticated. There's something very sophisticated about natural sophistication about him. But yet, he could be so vulgar and make you laugh so much. And I've had a couple of scenes where we had to improvise small talk, at dinner tables and stuff. And I would just cry very, very subtly. Stuff like that. It's really stuff that I remember because it's stuff that reminds me when I was in high school and you're not supposed to laugh when you're in class, but it's belly laughters that you have a hard time controlling.
And you have to pinch yourself to stop.
They're
so
the
no one
best.
hears you.
They're the best. I miss having them. I feel like when I was younger, I had them every day. Like in acting school, I had a good friend of mine who was very famous in Canada. And we were talking about it the other day, and every day you laugh all the time when you're younger. So
it's how we were so skinny, maybe.
Huh?
We were also children when we were young,
Yeah.
but those stomach muscles.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
You laugh so hard it hurts.
Yeah, it hurts. Yeah. Stuff like that. Or, moments with Kelly, not Kelly, but Liz Torres and Sally Struthers. I remember one day on set, because when you're on a show like that, you change directors every week. And one of the directors, they had them, it was a really hot day. And for some odd reason, the chairs weren't out and they were standing and it was hot. And Liz turned to Sally and said, "Don't they know who we were?" You know, moments like that.
That's amazing.
That makes me laugh. Yeah.
And were there times now that you're back on set, like presently, that you just kind of like throw back to old jokes or just are, you know, it feels like you time traveled back? Or do you feel as though now the characters and the actors have this new sense of like, we've been places, we've done things?
Yeah. I mean, what really is different now is, first of all, we are older and we have perspective, which we didn't have. And so you go back to it very fully aware of the place that the show has in the culture and on television. And I think there's an appreciation of going back and having a second shot at something that was so meaningful. I mean, very rarely as an actor, when you've trained to move on when you're done with a job, because the job, guess what, is not going to come back. That just doesn't happen, you know? So to have a shot at it and to be able to go back and revisit that life and revisit the character, and it feels very much like home because you've dated that. I've dated Michel for 7 years. You know what I mean? Like, he was part of me for 7 years. So to go back to who he is felt very comfortable.
It's like riding a bike?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
I'm so excited for it and thrilled to see the new installment of the series and where it could go, because I know it's only 4, but then who knows? I think it's all...
Oh my God, she already has hope for more.
I'm like, I want more already. Like, has it come yet?
I don't know about that, but...
Oh God, what, does everyone die at the end?
No, there's no explosion, so we could technically all come back. Yeah.
You could.
Yeah.
Well, I think the internet, which I think is a very fascinating thing for you, it's a good year for you and the internet, because you also have a new YouTube show.
Yeah,
coming
true.
out.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I saw for the first time, is it like 4 or 5 days ago now, the trailer came out, and I hadn't seen any images or anything, and it's exciting because what I had in my head when I read the scripts is very close to what I saw, which is like a mix of 30 Rock and a reality show. It's very interesting, and it's like candy television.
Yeah, it's called Sing It on YouTube Red, which is now coming up with all these really cool shows.
I guess it's the new way of bringing a new audience to their channel, right? Like Hulu. I mean, now Netflix obviously is the leader in doing that, but YouTube, I think, produced 3. I think they have now 3, but I think everyone is doing it, and it's fantastic for us actors because it's more material, more opportunities, and it's good material. People are taking more risks with the writing, and it's edgier. And you know, before, when you had like 4 or 5 channels, they produced shows that were as broad as possible, which is normal. They wanted to be for everybody. Now you don't have to do that anymore. You can have like a show that is very for a niche of people, and if you reach them, then you're a success, and that's fantastic.
Do you want to know what's really funny is that, so I'm a writer, and I am a big fan of The Voice, and I'm watching The Voice the other week, and I'm thinking to myself, why isn't there a scripted spoof of this show?
Well, there you go.
And then I read about your show, and I was like, damn. But no, it's exciting because there was Burning Love. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
It was a Yahoo series that was a spoof of The Bachelor.
Oh, and how was that? Was that a good show?
So they did 3 seasons of it on Yahoo, and then put it on. Oh. It's very, very funny, and I think it was almost the first of this kind.
Nice. When was that? How long ago was that?
I believe it premiered the first one premiered about 2 years ago, so there was one of The Bachelor, one Bachelorette one, and then a Bachelor Pad one, which is when they all get together in the summer.
Okay.
You know, God knows what. But it's a very funny spoof with a lot of comedians, and this really, Sing It really reminded me that it could be in a similar vein.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but it's very promising with what I saw, and it also got picked up by the Tribeca Film Festival. So I'm excited about that too, because that kind of is an indication of the quality of the show. So that's great.
Because it's funny, you know, you see all of these interviews with the contestants in real life on these shows, and they tell their sob stories. and they have the sad music. Then somehow I'm sitting there on my carpet crying, and I'm like, why am I crying?
Oh my God, you get so invested.
But and then I'm thinking to myself, this is stupid. He's telling a story about how he was bullied when he was fat when he was 12. I mean, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But they get
They
you.
get you, yeah.
And I'm excited for this series to explore that and also explore what's happening with these contestants, because they always hug each other after they sing.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm so congratulations.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, I'm not that actor. See, when I go for an audition, and I think it's a little phony, maybe it's genuine for some actors, but some actors, when you go in, when they walk out, they wish you good luck or break a leg man. I'm like, oh, thanks.
Like, I know you really mean it.
Yeah, but I mean, I want the part. You want the part. That can't be sincere. I just feel like I just don't say anything. I go in, I do my job, and I obviously want the job. Otherwise, I wouldn't go in. So, yeah, break a leg, but for real. Go break a real leg.
Yeah. So when you auditioned, though, right, for this role, you were auditioning for a judge.
Yes.
And then you moved to network executive.
Yes. So I auditioned for a mean judge, which is so surprising, right? Why?
I know.
I mean, I don't know.
He would
I
be
don't know where
perfect for that one,
I don't
too.
know where they took that.
Odd.
But then they ended up offering me the head of the network where Sing It airs, and it's a very fun part. I love those executives that are full of bullshit. Can I say that on your?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I love how they're manipulative. They don't want to burn bridges because you might end up on another network. Who knows? You might be an executive soon. They might need your movie. All of the politics that goes behind those jobs is fascinating to me. There's a lot of layers. I love layers.
Oh, it is.
Oh.
So how many episodes are there going to be?
I think there's 10.
Yeah,
Right?
I believe there's 10.
Yeah,
and
there's 10.
Premieres on May 21st.
Yes.
Which is very exciting. Or do you know if they're going to release all of them at the same time?
That's a good question. I have no clue because that's a new channel.
It
So I don't know
is.
how they... Is everyone doing... Do you know on Hulu and Yahoo and Amazon, do they release everything?
It depends what show. It's weird. Hulu
Oh.
has been giving us just episodes at a time
Okay.
with most of their original
Okay.
series. Amazon, I think, has been releasing them all at once. So it's a crapshoot, honestly.
Okay.
But that's one of the things that I think is so fascinating about you, because the internet has like given you this kind of resurgence.
Right. I mean, I don't know if... It's so interesting because for me, like Netflix, I don't consider Netflix the internet, but I guess it is.
It is.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Because
that's-
honestly,
yeah.
getting the DVDs now
Yeah,
that people, no one does that anymore.
No one does that. No. Yeah, I guess, but that's the new time we live in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure you know, ask 80% of your friends, what are you doing tonight? I'm watching some Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
That's the new TV.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at because that's where the new TV is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. And now that YouTube is having
Yeah.
this series, and I'm just excited that you are going to kind of be like back in this ball game. And I said
know.
this to you before we
Yeah.
started shooting. I know that Gilmore Girls is like a real life show, but you guys might as well be vampires
Yeah.
because you all look so young and so good.
I wish I would feel the same. I'll just say that. I don't know. I don't feel the way I felt when I did the show, which, by the way, I was like 29. Ugh,
Oh, God.
I don't want to think about it.
Well, no one's ever going to feel the same, but to know that you look the same to us.
To you, well, that's good, I guess. They say black don't crack, right? So I guess maybe it's true. But they're not all black on the show, so I guess that doesn't apply. Also, listen, it has not been 25 years, as I told you.
Right.
It's been 8 years or whatever. So, we're actors, we're trying our best to age gracefully. So sometimes perhaps it works. I don't know.
Well, I think that this is the perfect series to be rebooted at this time.
Yeah,
and-
it's fantastic. The timing of it is perfect. I am so thrilled that we get to give something new because the number of times that people stop me and say, like, oh my God, it's so funny. I just started rewatching Gilmore Girls.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have 4 new episodes. So that's awesome for people.
4 and more.
Oh,
No,
well,
I'm
That
sitting
part,
here.
really, I think it's wishful thinking, but maybe if it's like a gigantic thing. maybe they'll.
You never know.
You never know.
Who would have thought it was going to be brought back on Netflix?
That's true.
In 2016.
That's true.
So anything can happen. Before we leave, I know that you've been doing some other really cool stuff that doesn't have anything to do with entertainment, which I really commend you for and appreciate, because your life isn't all about being an actor.
No.
It's also about being healthy.
I mean, I've always, I was raised by a hippie mom. We were vegetarian when I was a kid. We were recycling when I was 5. So I was raised very healthy, and I've always loved moving around. So I play tennis, I bike, I play badminton. There's very few things that I don't do. And out of necessity, I was in LA and I train here. I do my cardio at SoulCycle. And there was nothing like that back home in Montreal. And I was going to be shooting a Canadian series, and I just suddenly panicked. I was like, what am I? Because I can no longer jog. I used to be a jogger, but my knees are bad and I can't do it anymore. So spinning is the best alternative I found to my jogging, because you get that high really that you get when you jog. But I didn't want to do the old school spinning, which I've always felt it was boring. And it just occurred to me how absurd it was, a big city like Montreal that didn't have a spinning studio. Then I went online, then it confirmed. And then I was like, well, someone should do it. Then I was like, well, I should do it. And then I went back to Montreal 3 weeks later. I found a space, and I was so convinced that this was the perfect space that I just signed a lease for 10 years. I was like, okay, I'll figure it out. And 5 months later, I was open and people were spinning.
Including, Ariana Grande.
Ariana Grande came 3 or 4 times when she was in Montreal. And she actually invited 3 of my trainers, because she loved the classes so much that she gave them passes backstage. And she was very cool, by the way.
You want to know what? I love Ariana Grande. Let me just
awesome.
Say this.
Yeah.
I follow her on Snapchat. I'm a big fan.
Very real, very humble, very real, very genuine.
She's not a BSer, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
I really love her, and I loved that she went to your studio. I was such a big fan of it. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, we have, because I'm an actor and it's known that I own the studio. We have a lot of the entertainment industry in Canada and Montreal. But I'm happy that people from outside of town, when they come in town, they kind of know that that's where they have to go. So
it's a very smart idea.
Thank you. If you come to Montreal, you have to go to Spin Energy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will. Well, thank you so much for coming in. Like I said, I am such a huge fan, and this was really such a treat for me personally.
Oh,
thank you. For the fans that don't know, where can they find you on social media?
This is all new to me, by the way. I was very anti-social media, because I just think that it takes you out of the present moment. And I've seen too many people at dinners and with their friends with their head down. It drove me nuts. But I got convinced to, actually a friend of mine signed me up on Twitter, and I got the confirmation email. And she said, oh, by the way, you're going to get an email from Twitter. I just signed you up. It's like, are you kidding me? That's how I got my account on Twitter, which is under my name, Yanic Truesdale. And on Instagram, I think it's my name as well. I enjoy Instagram better. It fits more with my personality to share. My mom was a photographer when I was younger. I really appreciate pictures, and I think it's a cool, simple way to share a little bit about your life without being too revealing and remaining private, which is something that I've always been kind of guarded on certain things and aspects.
Absolutely. But you want to know what? In the next few months to year, you are going to be getting some, attention on the social media, especially, like I said, because Netflix and YouTube.
Yeah.
It all lends to
I'm all ready. Listen, I'm all set up. I have my social media. I'm doing it. And it's, as I'm getting more accustomed to it, it feels more familiar. And I try to make it more my own and find my own voice. Which is an interesting process. Listen, it's a different, we live in a different time. Sometimes that's where I feel old sometimes, so you haven't changed, but I grew up without any of that stuff. And that's where you feel like, oh, this is like another generation thing. I didn't grow up with that. I went outside and I played outside. Now the kids are on the computer. It's a different time.
It is. I actually was from a weird time that was transitioning between those
so you had both.
times. Mm-hmm. I had both. And it was a bit of a weird time.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad that you had a little bit of the old way.
Yeah.
Sometimes I miss, like I was just traveling. I was in Canada to do promotion and stuff and interviews. And I was at the airport. And, there were a time where people exchanged smiles and looked at you at the airport. Now everyone, literally everyone, carry their luggage and they have their head down. Everyone is texting or checking whatever. Sometimes I just miss. I miss the old days for that. I just miss the connections that when you were waiting for the bus or waiting for your plane, and people were a little more chatty and be
Cute
like,
meets.
yeah,
Meet cute.
meet cute.
Meet cute, right?
Is that what it is?
It's like a movie term of when
really?
you just like run into someone and it's like, oh, hi.
Yeah,
Hi.
I love that though. I love spontaneity of like talking to a stranger and then you end up being friends, which it happened a lot to me in Europe. People are a little less savvy, tech savvy, a little less, and more like if you go to Italy, they on the street like hanging out and having a coffee for 10 hours, or a gelato or something.
Yeah, or a lot of wine. Probably.
Or a lot of wine. Hey, that's all good to me. Give it to me.
Well, I know that, you're not super into it, but we're going to get you some people talking to you because I think that you have a lot of fun things to say. I'm going to start following you on Instagram. I'm not sure if I do, but if I don't, I should. I'm going to.
Yeah, shame on you. I mean, seriously?
I know, seriously, because I follow you on Twitter, and then I was like, wait, Instagram, what? Yes.
Yeah.
I love taking pictures,
There
too.
you go.
It's a very, very fun
Please
platform.
follow me on Instagram.
Well, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. You can follow me, Sam Davidson, on Twitter and Instagram at SamD43. And we cannot wait until the season of Gilmore Girls. Hopefully we'll have you back in the studio for our Gilmore Girls after show.
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will
you.
see you next time.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.